Hello, Port fans and Collingwood fans and AFL fans watching this preview for round one. We are back for 2025. It's Port Adelaide versus Collingwood at the MCG this Saturday night at 7 p.m. It's the first of Super Saturdays on Fox and the first of 2025 for Port Adelaide, and in particular, the first game of the year for Port, realistically, because Collingwood have already played. So this is going to be an interesting preview because we have a general feeling around Collingwood, and we haven't got really a certain grip on what Port Adelaide are going to show up in 2025. So there's a lot to discuss. Let's get into it in a preview. Port Adelaide versus Collingwood, round one. The most exciting time of the year is round one. Your team is looking to change the story from 2024, from the previous year. Your team could have been finishing bottom. Your team could be finishing top. Could have lost a grand final. Could have lost a prelim. Couldn't have made the eight. And here we are, round one. The story is already to be told. Some might describe this as the Dan Houston Cup. Some may describe this as the Prison Bar Cup. Some purely just hate Collingwood, and some purely just hate Port Adelaide. And we're going to be here purely to talk from a Port Adelaide point of view of how Port can win this game. Now, the preview in itself, this is one of the biggest previews of the year because it's round one. As I said before, you don't have a genuine grasp on what each team could do. And if we dive straight into opposition watch with Collingwood, and they come out of last week against the GWS Giants in an opening round clash that flattened hard for them in the second half in particular. They never really had a moment to showcase what they've been working on and what they've been grasping and what they're wanting to showcase for this year. And all the hype around Collingwood this year was they're back in the top four, they've recruited well, genius moves, they get fit players, everything's going to work out for them, they're going to jump straight back in. The hype flattened like an air balloon. It went downhill very quickly. And with that came the extra pressure of, where do they stand? Are they actually going to do what has been promised? Are they going to do what everyone has been expecting? And opening round is a small portion of an example. You can't build any sort of opinion on a team that kicked 6 goals, 16, was in it for 3/4 of a match, and didn't take their opportunities. And we've seen teams many a times in the past not take their opportunities in a game and end up getting flattened. It's as simple as that. Being a Port Adelaide fan, I know too well what 6 goals 16 looks like. So you sit here and you get a grasp on Collingwood. They don't have De Goey. They have a very cramped upside. Nick Dacos was cramping in the third quarter. What changes can they make? Well, one's as simple as Dan Houston's off suspension now and he comes straight back in. Does Mason Cox come in for Membry and does their forward line function? They look slow. They didn't look as competitive as expected. They looked quite old. Pendlebury looked a step behind, and Sidebottom didn't look anywhere near as what he's been expected to do. And their midfield didn't look as powerful. And Perryman showed a lot of good signs. And I think structurally they looked okay. I don't think they just had the output from certain players. And I sit here now and I'm like, well, you're coming up against a young Port Adelaide side who have changed their dynamic, changed the way they're going to enter inside 50, changed the way they move the footy, and it's a fresh look and it's a young side. And at the MCG, bigger ground, cooler conditions, going to look a little bit more appetising for Pies fans. They did play in a very humid, hot sort of game, and conditions were quite poor in Greater Western Sydney, especially with cyclone and the air being quite thin. So coming into this one, it's going to be quite hot again. It's going to be around 34 degrees by the time they kick off on Saturday night. And look, I honestly don't think the conditions will favour anyone here. Port Adelaide played an internal trial match last week to showcase, to build on fitness and be at 100% prepared for this week, especially with the opening round. They wanted to see what strategy they could pull, and the internal trial wasn't exactly fun. Connor Rosie's injury scare, which the club has confirmed he'll play this week, so that's very exciting news. And the round one side for Port Adelaide in particular, as we move more into the Port Adelaide aspect of the preview now, is I think we match up really well against the Pies. Our new dynamic of We look at Lukosius and Georgiadis and our small forward line fleet with Berry, Richards, Power Pepper, DBJ, Rioli, all of these. Horn Francis can rest down there. I think our dynamic of the way we move the footy with our handball chains and these short 15, 20 metre kicks on the diagonal really work well, and they really break the zone, and that's what really opens us up to head inside 50 a lot quicker. Ball movers like Bergman, Finlayson down back is going to really work well. Our quick ball movement might catch the Pies off guard, and this is where the decision to launch is crucial for Port Adelaide, because if we launch the way we did against the Saints and could do that 3-4-5 handball chain, get that right, execute that well, 1-2 inside 50, bang, there's an open spot, kick a goal. The Pies will not be able to keep up with that going inside 50, especially the way they were structuring up. I think if the Pies are any chance of matching that intensity with Port Adelaide, I think they're going to have to be, they're going to have to put a lot of pressure on us when we get the footy. The ball carrier is crucial in this game. Same way for Collingwood. Collingwood's ball movement once inside 50, they look to really congest it up. They want to keep it there. They look really solid when they did have the opportunity. They were finding targets inside 50 as well, which a little bit of concern, especially with us. I think at Port Adelaide perspective, we have a smaller defensive unit. We're not going to be great one-on-one. So exposing that, Collingwood would definitely want to utilise that weakness of ours. But Port Adelaide slow it down for them going inside 50. I back us in with the contested pack. I back us in with Aliir intercept marking and Miles Bergman doing the job. And we talk about Dan Houston. He was a key pillar in Port Adelaide, and the difference he'll make in this Collingwood side is that 3 to 4 intercept marks. We saw Collingwood last week nearly help Sam Taylor break the record for intercept marks. So I think he ended up with 8 or something. So the way that seems to help is I like the idea of slowing Collingwood down, the way they can move the footy, and I honestly believe that when it comes to Port Adelaide this week, if we are quick enough, we're not going to need to worry about anyone intercept marking our ball movement, and that is crucial to us doing the job. And Lukosius, Georgiadis, and co are going to have a nice look at it when it comes to Saturday night. Now, obviously, releasing this before selection, I'm not entirely sure on what we're going to do. I think the general aspect of this, I can sort of give you a couple of predictions. Ryan Burton will not play. Salvo Radaglia will not play. Does Ollie Lord play is probably the big question. How big do we go down in our forward half? And I think he does play. I think they like the idea of having that rotation for Jordan Sweet as Ollie Lord compared to being Jeremy Finlayson, especially if Finlayson's playing predominantly down back full time now. They need a rotation, and they're not going to play Ollie Wines roaming around in the ruck. They're going to need Ollie Lord to go in there. So I think Ollie Lord will play up forward. I think Travis Boak will be the sub. That's my honest thought. I was thinking about him or Jackson Mead. I think they like Mead in terms of as a good rotation for the wing and going inside 50 as a half forward or even in the middle. Midfield losing Butters certainly helps that aspect. I think Joe Berry and Joe Richards get a debut this week. Obviously Jack Lukosius will get one as well, and I think we're going to see quite a lot of different attributes with each individual this weekend. Our starting midfield obviously has to be Drew, Wines and Rosie. I think Horn Francis will start on the bench, especially in those conditions. He has started in the last couple of pracky matches, so with extended rests in that time. So I think he'll start on the bench there. And if I wanted to look at a key matchup, Nick Dacos has to have Willem Drew on him. We saw last week Toby Bedford did an amazing job in nullifying his impact, and Nick Dacos had to work harder, which meant when he was working harder, more fuel, more energy utilised, and what happened? Ended up cramping. They stopped the game for him, but they overutilised Nick Dacos, didn't give him as much rest, and we talk about fitness. Another hot week this week. Drew can overwork him. I think Drew, whilst also has had a bit of an interrupted pre-season, has the capacity to go with him. We've seen him done numerous amounts of times, great jobs on tagging and nullifying plays. He looked great in the internal trial. So expect Willem Drew to get that matchup, and I expect Aliir to go to McStay, and from there we'll just follow on through. And it'll be all dependent on what Collingwood do with their selection. Obviously no Degoe. Obviously Houston will come back in. Does Mason Cox come in? be interesting to see. But I think that's what I'd run with, and I really am confident in our ability to do the job with the team this week. All right, let's get to the tip. Let's get to the result, because I look at the last 4 results against Collingwood. It's been loss, 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 and they've been heavy losses. There was a 6-point loss away. There was a 2-point loss at home. There was also a 71-point loss and a 42-point loss. Our last win came against the Pies, I think a few years ago. I'm looking at it now at AFL tables. It was a few years ago now, back in 2021. It was pretty sure it was Trav Boak's 300th or 350th game. So it'd be 300th game, sorry. So yeah, very intriguing how the results have sort of gone. They've gone in blocks as well, ever since the start against the Pies back in 1997. We haven't played, I don't think, against Collingwood in round 1 since that 1997 at the MCG. So not a great omen, but look, if you look at the results in the history, there's been blocks of 4 wins to each team, blocks of 5 wins, 2s and 3s, and the rotation of these games have always been close and always been. There's never been anything in between. It's always been either one team wins massively or one team wins close, and never anything in between. So with that, we're expecting a close game, and I'm expecting a fiery game. First quarter is massive for Port Adelaide. Started slowly-ish against the Crows. Started great against the Saints. If you start well this week, I think Port Adelaide will get the job done really well. We've seen at the MCG a couple of times that Port Adelaide have started really well with 6-7 goals in the first quarter, ended up fizzling out. So expect a hard contest. I'm tipping Port Adelaide by 11 points. I think we'll get the job done in a close game, in a game that I'm certainly very nervous about. I'll be at a wedding this weekend as well while the game is on, which is going to be very, very intriguing. And yeah, I'm very much excited. So let me know in the comments below, Port fans, your thoughts and your tips of this week. Collingwood fans, if you're watching as well, and anyone else that's watching that wants to give a tip and give their 2 cents, absolutely open the comments and see what you think. The last time Ken Hinkley will coach Port Adelaide on a round 1 side, and it's going to be at the G against the Pies, and I can't wait to see what can occur. Thank you so much for watching, Port fans and Collingwood fans and AFL fans and anyone that's watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content to come your way. The Pears on a Pod episode, the latest one, is out. So is the Glass Table. Make sure you check that out as well for more AFL content. The preview will be up. Review will be on Sunday. I look forward to a massive year. We're back. Previewing, reviewing, getting into the games. It's finally here. The season is upon us for Port Adelaide, and I can't wait. Thank you so much for watching once again. My name's Anthony, and as always, calm the pair.